We want to take you to Guatemala City now, where U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris is meeting with the Guatemalan president. This is video from just moments ago. Have a look. The vice president told the Guatemalan president that it was in their collective interest to work together, adding it was clear the U.S. has a responsibility to cooperate and work with allies. The U.S. vice president is on a fact-finding mission to find out why so many people leave their homes in Latin America for the dangerous trip to the United States. What Kamala Harris learns could really help craft U.S. immigration policy. She's meeting with the president of Guatemala. Her next stop is Mexico, where initial results indicate the party of President Andrés Manuel López Obrador lost seats in Sunday's midterm election. There's a lot to talk about, a lot to unpack here. CNN's Jeremy Diamond is following Kamala Harris' trip in Guatemala. Matt Rivers is in Mexico. Jeremy, let's start with that meeting that took place just shortly between the Guatemalan president and Kamala Harris. Talk to us of what came out of that statement there that we briefly saw, and what Kamala Harris is trying to really get to the heart of during her visit.
Well, right out the gate, you heard her talking about the fact that migration is the #1 issue on the table in these talks between the United States and Guatemala. Of course, the root causes of migration is really the focus of her visit, and those factors are many. You have everything from poverty to hunger, climate change, and crime, and of course, the very dicey issue of corruption. We haven't yet heard very much from inside that room in terms of whether or not the vice president is addressing that issue of corruption. But what we do know is that her advisors have made clear that they see corruption in Guatemala and in other countries in the Northern Triangle as endemic and as one of the primary root causes that push people to leave their homes here in Guatemala and migrate to the United States. We also heard the vice president talk about the fact that she is trying to work to bring hope to the region. That is also something that her advisors have highlighted ahead of these meetings. Indeed, it is that hopelessness that so many people feel here, which has pushed them to migrate to the United States despite the dangerous journey that they face, despite the uncertain prospects once they actually arrive in the U.S. It is because of the desperation that they are facing here, whether it is because of the devastating hurricanes that destroyed so many people's livelihoods, the drought that has affected farmers in the rural parts of Guatemala. There are many, many issues here. So we will see how the vice president continues to engage on this today. Her team has suggested that there will be some policy deliverables today, some very clear decisions being made, one on the anti-corruption front and also on this Central American migrants program for children in terms of how they will be able to apply for asylum and get to the United States. So we'll see whether there is actually progress made on that. And lastly, the thing I would just note is that the vice president is clearly not just focusing on her efforts in diplomacy with the Guatemalan government. She's also going to be meeting with young entrepreneurs as well as civil society leaders. And that is a clear signal to the Guatemalan government that they are not the only show in town. Clearly, the U.S. and Guatemala need to work government to government, but the United States can also work with many of these nonprofits and civil society organizations to try and address issues like corruption when the government will not.
Jeremy, do stay with us. I want to bring in Matt Rivers, who's in Mexico. And Matt, I was going to ask you about the elections, but actually you have covered, really, you've spoken to so many migrants who made their way to the United States. You've brought us some incredible reporting. And, you know, as Kamala Harris tries to get to the heart of why so many are leaving, which is, you know, corruption and poverty. And the corruption, I mean, if you start with Guatemala, El Salvador, or Honduras, it's not something you can do overnight. This is a long-term fight. Tell us what you have seen and how hard of a task this will be for the United States.
You can't put a fine enough point on that, Issa. It's a great point that you bring up here, where the United States has an immediate issue right now, which is a huge number of migrants arriving at the U.S. southern border. But to your point, addressing those root causes of migration, those are long-term solutions. You know, so how does the United States manage to give people, as one analyst I spoke to, enough hope that by staying in their country, their lives will get better? You know, you have to give people a reason to stay. People are not leaving because they want to, because this is an easy journey. I mean, Honduras, Guatemala, Nicaragua, all of these, El Salvador, all of these Central American countries, people are leaving as a matter of survival. These trips are incredibly dangerous, and these migrants know that. But when you have nothing at home, when there is no job prospects, when there is gang violence, when there is endemic government corruption, when people are living on mere dollars a day, in a lot of cases, they don't think they have another choice. It's either migrate to the U.S. or in some cases, literally starve. That is the choice being made by a lot of migrants. And over the past year, given the COVID-19 pandemic, given 2 devastating hurricanes that the region had within 2 weeks, back-to-back Category 4 hurricanes, it's made the situation in so many of these countries untenable. And yet solving those problems, you can work with civil society, you can work with NGOs on the ground, that's all well and good. But look at the government partners that the U.S. has to work with. In El Salvador, you have what some critics are calling a rising dictator in Bukele, the president there. In Nicaragua, you have incredible government corruption. In Honduras, the president of Honduras is an unindicted co-conspirator with his brother, who was officially indicted and charged and found guilty in the United States for narco trafficking. And so Guatemala might be the best of all of them, and there's a lot of corruption in Guatemala too. So just to summarize that, Issa, this is not an easy solution for the United States to have to figure this out. Kamala Harris has a very, very difficult task ahead of her.
Yeah, I mean, in Guatemala alone, there's corruption within its courts. An investigation is underway, isn't it, with judges? So thank you for laying it out. I wish we had more time, Matt. I could speak to you for a whole hour about South America. Appreciate all your work. Thanks very much.